Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Wassa Distance Education and ENG4C. Well, yesterday we did a variety of things, but we finished up with uh, looking at the report outline. I showed you some examples on how to organize your material and then move all of your content that you have collected in your notes into the actual organized material or organizer and create the outline. And so you have both quotes in there, and then from the what I think column in your notes, you put down your own ideas or you copy and paste your own ideas into the actual outline. And then, therefore, you have all of your claims and the body of the topics, topic areas of your report, supported by, of course, the quotations. Now, the quotations can be either direct quotes, and you're not going to use three sentences for a quotation. It's not very acceptable in most academic writing to include such a large quote in a direct quote or a large passage. And that's, of course, if you're going to take out chunks of it and just highlight the main idea that you're trying to get across. So, um, what you are going to do is use paraphrasing if you wanted to include the information from a larger passage, let's say maybe a paragraph. And we did look at paraphrasing earlier on in the course, but I didn't really like the material that I presented to you there. So I have some other material that I'd like to go through with you today on paraphrasing. And if we get a chance later on, there's another video I wanted to play with you to um, um, help you along with doing your research. The activity we will be doing today then is activity 7, the drafting and revision of your um, research report. Let's take a look at the learning goals. First of all, it says on page 81. By the end of this activity, you'll be able to write a draft of your research report using a template as a tool to format your work. You'll provide feedback on peer's draft. Now, that's a far stretch here because we don't generally have that option available. If we do, though, um, we certainly would include it as part of this course. So if there was two of you in a community working on your essays, then we could do that. The success criteria then are you'll use relevant headings and subheadings to organize your report with clarity and purpose. You'll use a business-like, concise voice. You'll apply your knowledge of APA formatting to create parenthetical citations as well as full citations for at least 5 sources. You'll apply your knowledge of graphic text to communicate one portion of the report in a visual way, in a table, chart, graph, or diagram. You will use text features such as bolded text, italics, underlining, and bulleted numbered lists to add clarity and organization to your writing. You apply knowledge of proper spelling, grammar, and punctuation. You'll demonstrate your editing skills by identifying and explaining whether or not a peer has used effective editing business like voice, APA format, knowledge of graphic text features, spelling, grammar, and punctuation in his or her draft. Now, of course, we're not going to be able to um, complete this one uh, success criteria, but we'll try our hardest to get as close as possible. So the content starts on page 82. Having completed your outline for your research report, it is now time to compose a rough draft. You'll need to find a peer editing partner for this activity. If you anticipate any challenges in finding a peer editing partner, talk to your teacher. So hopefully you can find somebody. If you're working at a school, the teachers would be happy to help you. Maybe somebody in your household has finished ENG4C and would like to help. So recall the audience purpose and format of your assignment. Once again, it is repeated right here. The audience is of your peers who might be interested in a similar issue, similar to one of the ones presented in your novel. Substance abuse, depression, racism, poverty, violence, etc. The purpose is to inform the reader about a particular issue based on research from reliable sources. A report of approximately 1,000 words containing at least 5 references from reliable sources. Have another look at the following report exemplar on pages 42 to 47. This report was written for an audience of ENG4C students to explain the process of writing a report. So we used a report to explain how to write a report or a report format. Okay, and so our key question that you can work on over the weekend here, key question 36, drafting the research report. This is after you've got it in its outline now. You can start with your first draft. Once again, please keep a copy of this assignment in your portfolio folder, which you will be able to refer to in your culminating task in the writing section. Using the sample report as a template, write a draft of your research report. When it is finished, exchange it with a classmate or your teacher and do the research report, or have them do the research report peer feedback sheet to provide feedback after you have given your completed draft peer feedback sheet. Submit a copy of it to your teacher along with your draft for the feedback on the accuracy and completeness of the report. The rubric below is the rubric that will be used to assess your final draft of your research report in the next activity, but you should look at now. You should look at it now so that you know what the expectations are. Okay, so we're coming to the final steps there of writing your research report. And this is a good time to look at how you're going to be assessed. So out of the knowledge and understanding categories, right, you will demonstrate excellent knowledge of the report format. So the example template that we gave you is perfect. And if you can keep to that format, then you will definitely get a level 4. Also, under knowledge and understanding, you will demonstrate excellent understanding of report content through incorporation of relevant facts and details. Okay, so you need to stay focused, right? So you have your topics or your subtopics, right? And so you need to, whatever is included in that subtopic needs to be focused and relevant to the theme of the topic area. In the thinking section, you use processing skills to draw conclusions with a high degree of effectiveness. Right, so you have your own wordings available from the what I think section, and that takes what we call processing skills to be able to integrate quotes that you have um, saved, compiled, that will support the ideas and thoughts that you came up with. As far as communication goes, the voice is highly appropriate for audience and purpose. All right. Also, under communication, you'll use text features with a high degree of effectiveness. That's your lists. You're creating a, a number list, numerical list, and you're using bold, uh, maybe even italics, whatever you need to use to highlight the text. You organize ideas using headings and graphics with a high degree of effectiveness. You use knowledge of proofreading, spelling, grammar, and punctuation with a high degree of effectiveness. In the application category, you transfer knowledge to a new form uh, with a high degree of effectiveness. And so our peer report feedback sheet is found on page 84. There's the writer's name, that would be you, and the editor's name would be your peer friend. So this is what your peer friend would need to do. Scan the entire report from beginning to end, ignoring content, but focusing on format. Does the title page appear to be formatted? And we did give you a good example of how to format the title page. So does the title page appear to be formatted correctly based on the sample report you were given? If the answer is no, please explain and provide a suggestion. Does the writer organize the report using headings that are bold and lettered? If the answer is no, please explain and provide a suggestion. Does the writer use other text features effectively to enhance meaning? Bold size, bold italics, underline, bulleted, and numbered lists. If the answer is no, please explain and provide a suggestion. Is the report double-spaced? If the answer is no, please explain and provide a suggestion. Are the paragraphs indented? If the answer is no, please explain and provide a suggestion. Is at least one portion of the report presented using a graphic, table, chart, graph, diagram? If the answer is no, please explain and provide a suggestion. Is there a properly formatted references page? If the answer is no, please explain and provide a suggestion. Now read through the entire report from start to finish, and focus on content. Okay, so we looked at format first, and now we're looking at content. In the first section, a summary that briefly explains what information the report will contain. Does it make reference to the purpose in all the headings? If the answer is no, please explain and provide a suggestion. Do the following sections contain factual information presented in a clear and helpful way? If the answer is no, please explain and provide a suggestion. Does the writer cite at least 5 different sources in his or her report? If the answer is no, please provide a suggestion. And do citations appear both as parenthetical citations in the body of the essay and full citations in the references page? Have you highlighted or underlined any spelling, punctuation, or grammatical errors? Is a writer's voice businesslike and concise? If someone you knew were dealing with the issue outlined in the report, do you feel like the report will give that person a better understanding of the issue and how to get help? Describe the strengths and weaknesses of this report and offer one piece of advice for making the report stronger. All right, so that goes to your peer support, and hopefully you can find one. If you can't, let me know. We'll try to work something out. Um, so now what I'd like to do is close that and go to where are you? Oh, not there. Okay, so there's a little PowerPoint that I have on paraphrasing. And let's see, how do we get that to go full? There we go. Okay, slideshow. Understanding paraphrasing. Why, when, and how to paraphrase effectively. What is paraphrasing? Changing a sentence while keeping the original meaning. Now that sounds simple, but it requires skill. Understanding paraphrase. Oh, how do we get back there? Why paraphrase? We do it to avoid plagiarism, add variety to your writing, and demonstrate understanding. The academic importance of paraphrasing is, well, first of all, direct copying is plagiarism. It can result in expulsion from school or university. Always try to rewrite in your own words and paraphrasing is a great way to practice doing that. Paraphrasing in reading sections. Questions often rephrase content from passages. Recognizing paraphrases is better for comprehension. Here's an example sentence. Small animals such as rats and birds are often the victims of predatory animals like cats. Here's a couple of paraphrased versions for you. Felines have a tendency to prey on rodents and other small creatures. Cats usually eat mice and other small animals. So the key technique to changing this original sentence is to use synonyms and structure change. That is the structure change of the sentence. Okay, and we'll go through this and look at some activities, how you can change sentence structure in a bit here, okay? But for as far as synonyms go, um, cats and felines, um, rodents for rats and small creatures, those are all synonyms for the nouns in the previous sentence. So tools for paraphrasing, synonyms, the are of course the same meaning words, and the greatest place to find those is in the thesaurus, and thesaurus there's a hard copy at most learning centers, but also it's easily accessible online. Antonyms are opposite words, and we can use those by flipping the structure of the sentence. And once again, we'll look at some examples. It's important that you become familiar with grammar rules and vocabulary. Vocabulary knowledge is essential. And one gains vocabulary knowledge by just looking up definitions and get used to doing that. The English language is a wonderful language that has so much diversity that, um, there may be 2,000 different words that we can slightly change the meaning of a word with. So grammar matters. Maintain the original meaning is the crucial when you paraphrase. And also know sentence structures, clauses, and conjunctions. And we've looked at those previously in some depth with this course. Um, it's actually something that should have been um, that you should have been familiar with from um, grade school and early in grade 9, early high school. But a lot of people forget uh, some of these grammar rules because if you're out of school for a while, well, if you don't use it, you lose it, right? Okay, steps to paraphrase. Identify the independent clause. So that's the main clause. What is the sentence about? Isolate the main idea. Change words such as nouns, verbs, adjectives, or adverbs. You can modify the structures of the sentence, changing it from active to passive or vice versa. And you can change phrases into clauses or clauses into phrases. Prepositions and word order. Preserve chronological order. Retain logical relationships such as cause and effect and contrast. These are all very important. And if you don't retain them or preserve them, then the paraphrase will mean something different. Okay, here's an example sentence to paraphrase. Having failed to secure a definitive result from the hundreds of experiments he had conducted, Professor Talbot finally had to resign himself to the fact that his original hypothesis must have been flawed, and that he would thus need to begin his investigation from scratch. Rather wordy, almost a paragraph of uh, text there, one big sentence. Okay, so let's see how this worked. Now here's a paraphrased version. After hundreds of tests failed to bring him to a firm conclusion, Professor Talbot ultimately had no choice but to admit that his initial assumption, hold on, oh, I just had a sneeze there. Where did that come from? Wait, is there another one there? Well, let's continue on. Professor Talbot ultimately had no choice but to admit that his initial assumption was mistaken, and that he would therefore have to restart his research from the beginning. So there's a number of things going on here that are different. Oops. So, wait. A sentence? Okay. All right, so here is a breakdown of our example, what we did exactly. First of all, we found the independent clause, which was Professor Talbot finally had to resign himself to the fact, and then so on and so on. So that's the main idea in that sentence. So there's a couple important facts here that we need to include in our paraphrase. The first one is his original hypothesis must have been flawed. And the second one was that he would need to begin his investigation from scratch. So the context is he failed to secure definitive results. And this is the paraphrased version we get from breaking down um, the sentence that we want to change. After hundreds of tests failed to bring him to a firm conclusion, Professor Talbot ultimately had no choice but to admit that his initial assumption was mistaken, and he would therefore have to restart his research from the beginning. Okay, so here's our okay. Okay, so here's some tips. You can change from active to passive, phrase to a clause, use synonyms where possible, and ensure meaning stays intact. We looked at this example, we broke it down, and then we created a paraphrased version. Now, another approach is to focus more on a structure-based paraphrase. And in this particular sentence, we change the structure of the original sentence. So, Professor Talbot, whose hundreds of experiments, uh, this is a phrase here, whose hundreds of experiments did not lead to any sure conclusion, right? So this whose hundreds of experiments is what's it modifying? Well, it's no longer part of the clause. It has become a phrase. it's modifying Professor Talbert. Talbert, right? It's Professor Talbert who's had hundreds of experiments um, that did not lead to any sure conclusion. And then the verb had to concede at last that his starting hypothesis was faulty and would require thinking, rethinking. Okay, so a whole change in the actual structure of the sentence by converting that into a phrase and not part of oh, independent clause. Um, Paraphrasing avoids plagiarism, shows understanding as variety, requires strong grammar and vocab, and remember, practice makes purpose. Okay, so that's the end of our PowerPoint. Now I have a little exercise we can, if I can find it here. Close that. Just bear with me while I look for it. I have to sign back in again here. Ah, here we are. So here's some paraphrasing exercises. Oh, what happened? I almost lost it. Screen turned black on me. Okay, so if you're not exactly experienced with paraphrasing, then I'd like to send this practice exercise sheet to you so you could just run through it and maybe it will help you when you decide to do some paraphrasing for your essay. So, first section, make a different word using the prompt and the brackets. So, for our example here, development, that word, right? You want to change it to a verb. And you do that by just adding to develop. Economize, change to a noun, which would be economy. See what I'm doing here? So, let's go through this list here. To analyze, change that to a noun. Okay, so you try that out. How do you change to analyze to a noun? How about changing analyze to an adjective? Number 3, change evaluation to a verb. Number 4, change theoretical to a verb. Number 5, change problem to an adjective. Number 6, to expect, change that to a noun. To agree, change that to an opposite verb. Number 8, organize, change that to an opposite adjective. Number 9, to prove, change that to a noun. Number 10, to prove, change that to an opposite verb. So these are some of the little grammar techniques that you can use. Let's look at what our answers would be. So the first one, analysis, right? So that is a verb. Oh, sorry, a noun. We're changing the verb to a noun, right? The second one, to analyze, we want to change that to an adjective. Let's look at what our answer is. Analytical, right? Something is analytical, it's an adjective. Number three, to evaluate, right? What were we doing there? We're changing evaluation to a verb. Um, Number four, to theorize. Okay, so once again, we're changing it or something to a verb. Let's see what were we doing. Theoretical. Something is theoretical. We're changing that to a verb. So that would be an adjective to a verb, right? Uh, let's see. We will continue on here now. There are a number of examples here, but I wanted to show you how you would go about it. And I'll send this sheet to you, and you can practice on your own. Let's look at the second section here. Finish these paraphrase sentences by changing the word or word type and grammar. We studied the statistics, then applied for funding. Now, how can we change that? Let's see. After, and then blank, the statistics, we made an blank for funding. Okay, so after studying, right, we've converted studied to studying the statistics. We made from applied, we made an application for funding. Let's look at the next one. Number one, we were concerned about her health. And we want to change that to a noun, right? In this particular example here, we were concerned, right? So that's the verb, were concerned. We had some concerns. So now we've converted it into concerned into a noun. Number two, the council cut funding so we could not provide free parking. So in this case, cut funding, right? So that is our verb. We are going to change that verb into a noun here. Because of the council funding cut, right? We change that verb into a noun. That cut, it's a cut, it's a thing. There was no more let's see. There was no more funding for free parking. Number three, his proposal was a failure as it was too theoretical. So, was a failure at an adjective phrase? Was it, no, sorry, was a failure, yes. The proposal was a failure. His proposal failed. We converted it into a verb because it relied too much on theory. So we converted theoretical into a noun. I'll do one more. As the emphasis was only on the UK, there were weaknesses in the evidence. Oh, this one's a little tougher to do. I'm going to flip down to the answer here because I'm not sure about that one. By emphasizing the UK, the evidence was weak. All right. So there's a lot of good practice here for you, and unfortunately, I can't go through them all. Uh, but I'd like to send this to you if you are feeling a little overwhelmed by the idea of creating paraphrases. This going through this exercise will help you tremendously and prepare you for making your own paraphrases. And I'll send it to you. Um, these essays are written in 1 or 2 days. They take several days to write. And if we don't have some of the background practice, then we're going to leave big gaps and holes in our writing. And so learning to paraphrase will fill up one of those spots and give you some sense of confidence in writing in the future. Well, at least you'll understand the whole knack and idea behind paraphrasing, and that's a good start. Okay, so if we continue on to the next page, it says opinion is divided over what impact, if any, advertising has on children. What is beyond question is that many people, parents in particular, are worried about its effects. 88% of Swedes supported their government's ban on children's TV adverts, that's advertising, in 1991. There's our in text parentheses, in text citation, Willows, 2009, while 36% of adults in the UK thought that advertising was damaging to their children. Siddle, 2011. So this is actually taken from two different sources. So here's good example of paraphrasing. There is little agreement on the effect of advertising on children, though it is undoubtedly a concern, especially among parents. Interesting, right? So little agreement because you're going to be showing two different sources here, right? The 88% of Swedes and the 36% of adults. So that is quite a disagreement. And that's why it mentions. So we're saying the same thing that is in the original phrase or phrases here, the original sentences, but we're saying it in a different way. There's another example of paraphrase. Views vary, right, on what possible effect advertising can have on the young. What is without doubt is that most people, especially parents, are concerned about the impact, right? Because right here, 88% of the population, this is the Swedes, support the decision, though in UK, over a third of adults thought advertising could damage their children. So there is some agreement there. So, and there's some more examples of paraphrasing here for you to practice yourself. And of course, we have some examples here, answers that you can look at after you try it yourself. Okay? So I'd like to send that to you. Put your hand up right now if you are unfamiliar with paraphrasing. And take a little bit of time here, half an hour or an hour, and go through these exercises. You will be happy that you did, and then uh, you will have a clear pathway um, to writing good paraphrases, and also um, along with good paraphrases, if you um, uh, they work a lot better if you do have shorter, direct quotes to highlight some main points that you want people to notice in your essay. All right, so that's our little exercise on paraphrasing. I hope that you take me up on um, going through this exercise. I hope at least introduced to you the idea of paraphrasing when you're writing. It's a skill, a high level skill that just needs to be practiced like anything else. And and the more you do it, the better you get at it, and the more confident you become, like writing essays. Anyway, so our assignment for the weekend then is to do your draft of your research report. So this is your first draft, right? You've done the outline previously. Now you can start writing it all out. And once you get that done, then you get a peer to complete the research report peer feedback sheet, right? And that will, in a way, this report peer feedback sheet is just like a measurement tool, like this rubric right here. It tells you all the things that you need to include in your essay to write a successful essay. Okay, get that filled out. If you're having a hard time finding somebody, let me know. We'll see what we can set up for you, okay? Anyways, that's all we have to cover for today. I hope you enjoyed our class. I hope you have a very nice weekend. We only have a couple of weeks left, and then the semester is over and graduation's happening, and the summer break starts. So please get whatever assignments you can into me, and I will mark them as quickly as possible, and we'll see if we can get this credit under your belt. Otherwise, you can continue on with it over the summer. There's markers, and that would be fine as well. Um, okay, so yes, I said that have a great weekend, everyone, and we'll be talking to you again on Monday at the same time. Bye for now.